What is up everybody, welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the Porsche Cayman GT4 Carbon Edition. This car was actually a new starter pack type of vehicle in the game after the recent update, so if you guys do want to get this car you're going to have to spend the $8 to get it, and with that you will also get the 45,000 crew credits with it, but I'm sure a lot of players are wondering, is this car actually worth spending $8 on? I have noticed that some of the recent vehicles in the game have been pretty dang good, for example the ones in the Motor Pass, so I can't really get mad at the fact that they're adding vehicles that are actually paid for like this, but I'm sure a lot of players will definitely be wondering if they're really worth buying because $8 is almost the price of what the Motor Pass was before, and I have been noticing the Pearl Edition as well, for example, is going to be very similar to an old Summit vehicle, and it looks like this GT4 is going to be the exact same thing. One thing I really do have to admit though is I love the look of this car so much. Now obviously it's going to be called the Carbon Edition. I guess you can kind of see that when looking at the car because the entire thing is well, wrapped in carbon fiber, and I have to admit this thing does look really good with the red going around it. The carbon fiber surprisingly fits this car really nicely, and I really do think Ubisoft and or Ivory Tower did a really good job with the design of this Porsche. I mean, I really do love the look of this thing. I'm also a big fan of Porsche in real life, so seeing a car like this is pretty awesome. I really do think the carbon fiber looks absolutely insane. And with the recent new GT4 RS coming out, I would say, my goodness, we're going to have something kind of close to that in a way, but I will also be taking a look at that interior here in a quick second because my goodness, that also looks awesome. Now, I'm sure you all saw that you really can't customize this vehicle at all, which would make a lot of sense considering it's like a special edition. But one thing I did want to point out though is the Carbon Edition is going to be basically like the younger brother and or the predecessor of a different car that came out a while ago, which is going to be the GT4 Wasp Edition. I noticed these are going to be very similar in many ways with the way they look and the overall design as well. And I'm not going to lie guys, the Wasp Edition is probably one of my favorite Summit cars in the entire game, probably more than the RX-8 Gold Edition. Like the way this car actually drives is pretty incredible. Unfortunately, the GT4 has one big flaw to it, which I will get into that here in a second, but overall, I would say the Carbon Edition looks absolutely insane. I really do love how the carbon fiber looks, and the red going around this vehicle is going to make this thing look that much better. But now besides all that, let's go do an outside look of the GT4 right now and take a closer look at the interior. Then we definitely have to take this vehicle on a quick top speed test and also test out its overall handling and stability in one of the races. And now taking an outside look of the GT4 here, I would say many people are really going to like the look of this car. I personally really like the red and the carbon fiber fits this thing really nicely. I also think it actually looks really good when looking at it in the light. Sometimes some things can look kind of odd depending on the color, but I would say Ubisoft did a really good job with this vehicle. I would also admit that I think I actually like this thing more than the Wasp Edition, even though they're kind of different in some ways. But let's jump into the interior view now. I really like the way they did the interior in this car. I mean, I like how it's not like overdone, but there's also nice detail to it. I would say it's basically going to be perfect for the most part. We have some carbon fiber. We have the nice red stitching going around the car as well. Plus we have those really nice red seat belts. Then we will also have like a half roll cage, which is going to be red as well, which kind of matches like the outside of the vehicle. So I would say they did a really good job with the overall design of this car, and many players are most likely going to really like the look of this Carbon Edition. But now besides all that, let's go see what the top speed of the Carbon Edition actually is. So one of the biggest issues with the Wasp Edition was the fact that the top speed on that vehicle was honestly insanely low, pretty much compared to everything. But the biggest thing about the Porsche though is I did notice the overall handling of this car is probably going to be like top 2 in the entire game. I would honestly pick this thing over the Q60, like it's going to be that good. But let's see what the top speed is going to be. So 240 miles an hour. Now, if I do remember correctly, the Wasp Edition did about 234 miles an hour, so surprisingly, guys, the Carbon Edition is indeed going to be faster than the Wasp Edition. I'm on flat ground doing almost 245 miles an hour, so the Carbon Edition is going to have some of the best top speed I've seen, especially with a car with this kind of handling. I do want to mention, by the way, guys, I actually decided to test out the Wasp Edition again, and it turns out this car can actually hit 240 plus miles an hour as well, so I would say the Carbon Edition and the Wasp Edition are going to be insanely similar when it comes to top speed. Now jumping right into the Everglades Street Race with the Carbon Edition, I would say this is a pretty good event to actually test out this vehicle's performance, and from what I have done with the Carbon Edition so far, I would 100% pick this vehicle over the Pearl Edition that's also $8 in the store. I'm sure a lot of players have probably been pretty mixed on how they actually put vehicles in the store like that. I really do feel like these probably could have been Summit cars in the future, but maybe they're probably going to start doing like starter pack vehicles maybe every single season and or episode because of how the motor pass is now going to be paid for. But overall, guys, if you did want to spend a little extra money on this car, I would definitely do it. The reason why I say extra is it's about $8 for this vehicle, similar to the Mazda as well, which is almost the exact same price as the motor pass. So if you guys are looking for something extra to use, I would highly recommend taking a look at the Porsche over the Pearl Edition. I just really like this car a lot. I would say one of the biggest positives with this vehicle is probably going to be its weight. I would say one of the biggest positives with this Porsche is probably going to be the way that it actually handles. I'm honestly still really surprised this car can grip around turns like this. I mean, the Wasp Edition was literally my favorite street car because of that back in the day, but one of the biggest reasons why I didn't like the car that much was because of its top speed. But now that it seems like a lot of cars are coming out with around the same top speed of 240 miles an hour, I would say these cars are going to be a lot more viable than they were before. It's honestly really hard to actually like compare this vehicle to like the Superleggera. They're going to be a lot different in many ways, and I feel like those cars are going to be on top for a reason. I really do feel like that's one way they actually balance out the vehicles on the Crew 2. For example, some cars have a really high top speed, others might have good handling and vice versa. That's probably one good way they can actually balance them out. I'm also really glad they did this because now I'm starting to see a lot more cars being used in like every class and different events, so that's definitely going to be a plus there. And I would also say the GT4 Carbon Edition is by far going to be one of the coolest cars I've seen so far. I mean, I really do think this probably could have been a Summit vehicle because it's very similar to the Wasp Edition. I know a lot of players really did love that car, and now we're going to have another one. Not only that, though, this car is going to have different colors on it and or it's fully carbon, kind of, mentioning in the name there, but this car is definitely going to have a different appeal to it because it's going to be red with that really nice black carbon fiber compared to the Wasp Edition being basically yellow for the most part. So that was actually one of the things I really liked about the Carbon Edition, was the way this car actually looks compared to that one. So if you guys might have been wondering, is this car actually worth buying? I would 100% say yes to the GT4 Carbon Edition. I'm personally really liking this car so far, and the only big unfortunate thing is the only way to actually get it is to indeed buy it right now, which is going to be $8, but to be honest, if you guys actually have one choice, I would definitely pick the GT4 Carbon Edition over the Pearl Edition.